There we go. Okay, so it's good to see everybody today. Those who attended the coronation and everybody else. And so we're on chapter 13 of Joshua, as we start to read about the apportionment of the land of Israel to the tribes. We left off on page 75, chapter 13, beginning with verse 8. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So 75. So just to remind us that chapter 13 began with telling us that Joshua is old and time to now make sure that the land, that the people, the tribes settle in the land. So it told us what the boundaries were of the land and who's still there. And now, so let's go back to 7, just in the English now. Therefore, divide this land for an inheritance unto the 9 tribes and the half tribe of Manasseh. Right, so now 8, Imo hareuveni v'hagadi lakhu nachalatam asher natan lahem Moshe be'ever hayarden mizracha kasher natan lahem Moshe eved Adonai. With him, that is, with the half tribe of Manasseh, was the Reubenite and the Gadite, who took their inheritance or their portion that Moses gave them on the other side of the Jordan eastward, just letting in Marlene, as Moses gave them, Moses, servant of God, gave them. All right, we're on page 76, verse 9. Me arar asher al sfat nachal Arnon, veha'ir asher betocha nachal, v'chol hamishur medva ad divon. From Aroer, which is on the bank of the Arnon River, or the Arnon Valley. See, I'm not sure why it's translated as valley, because Nachal is stream. So, or it could be wadi. So it could be on the banks of the wadi of Arnon, and the city that is inside the stream. So that, I guess this is why it makes sense to be a valley and not a stream. Just muting all just for distracting noises. So the city that's in the valley and all of the plain from Medva to Divon. We'll just read through verse 14 and then we'll look at the commentary. 10. V'chol arei Sichon melech ha'emori asher. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I am recording. V'chol arei Sichon melech ha'emori asher malach becheshbon ad gevul b'nei Ammon. And all of the cities of Sichon, the king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, to the boundary with the sons of Ammon, the people of Ammon. V'hagilad ugevul hagishuri v'hama'achati v'chol har Hermon v'chol Bashan ad Salcha. And the Gilad to the boundary of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and all of the mountain of Hermon, and all of the Bashan until Salcha. The Kol Mamlechut Og Babashan Asher Malach Ba'ashtarot Uve'edrei Hu Nishar Miyeter HaRefaim Vayakem Moshe Vayorishem. And all of the kingdom, all the kingdom of Og in Bashan, who ruled in Ashtarot and Edrei, he alone is left from the rest of the Rephaim, and Moses had killed him and drove him out. Velo horishu b'nei Yisrael et hagishuri v'hama'achati Vayeshev Geshur Uma'achat Bekerev Yisrael Ad Hayom Hazeh. And the Israelites did not drive out the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and the Geshurites and the Maacathites dwelled in the midst of Israel until this day. 14, Rak Leshevet Halevi Lo Natan Nachala. Ishe Adonai Elohei Yisrael Hu Nachalato Kasher Diber Lo. Only the tribe of Levi was not given an inheritance or a portion. The fires of Israel, the fires of God, the God of Israel, is his portion as God spoke to him. Okay, so the commentary on this, down below on the bottom of 75 on the right, with him, that is, with the other half of the tribe of Manasseh. Although this is not stated explicitly, the context makes it clear that such is the meaning. Okay, Aroer on the bottom of 76, see on chapter 12, Medba Dibon, 2 towns of Moab. The former is slightly north of the Arnon and a few miles northwest of Aroer. The latter lies north of Dibon in an easterly direction. Both towns were subsequently retaken by the Moabites. Isaiah 15. The Geshurites, see on chapter 12. Salcha, see on chapter 12. And offerings made by fire. Wait, no, I'm sorry. The right-hand column on 76. The Geshurites and Maacathites remained unconquered by Israel. 14, he gave no inheritance as commanded by God. Offerings made by fire, bottom of 77. The priestly service at the altar and the perquisites which were given to the Levitical families. Okay, let's see what ancient Israel says about this section. On page 63, with whom the Reubenites and Gadites took their estate, that is, these 2 tribes, plus the other half of the tribe of Manasseh. The more likely historical scenario is not that Israelites settled east of the Jordan in the original conquest, but that they migrated there by stages later in search of land. So I don't know. Again, this is the problem with taking the so-called history from the Torah and the Bible to try to see if it's actual fact. So we have no idea how the conquest went. We have no idea really if the 2.5 tribes were the first to settle in their territory on the east of the Jordan. We really, really don't know. What we do know is really only from the exile to Babylonia. So anything, I mean, that history is pretty much corroborated by other sources. And I think we also know about the exile to Assyria, because that's corroborated also by Assyrian sources. So stuff before that, history before that, and I do history in air quotes, is really just questionable. We really don't know. Can you say that because the history that has been corroborated about Assyria and Babylonia in the Bible, if that's corroborated, then maybe the history before that, even though it's not corroborated, you can rely on it. I don't know if that's a logical conclusion that could be supported. It can be an argument, right? So, right, again, if latter half of the Bible is corroborated, then maybe you can, since the first half is not corroborated, you can still believe it. I don't know. So, I mean, it makes for jobs for archaeologists today to try to figure it out. Okay, so I'm just saying that this is just is just sharing with us the latest archaeology theory on settlement of the land of Israel, right? Because the same theory also questions: were all the family of Jacob in Egypt who came out? Right? There are some some historians archaeologists, biblical scholars who suggest that maybe half of Jacob's family did not go down and they stayed behind. So, and that what really the Bible is about is the attempt of unifying the family of Jacob, and the Bible really is a record of how unsuccessful that unification was. So, but again, we don't know. Okay, verse 10 in ancient Israel, the Hebrew gevul, meaning border, sometimes means border and sometimes means territory or region, the meaning shifting in this chapter. He remained from the remnant of Rephaim. See the comment on chapter 12. Ma'akat, this is either a variant, archaic form of ma'acha or a scribal error. Dwelled in the midst of Israel as elsewhere. This phrase does not mean that they were geographically integrated with Israel, but that they had peaceful relations with the Israelites. So, in other words, unlike the Gibeonites, who did mix in with the Israelite population, the Maakites and the Girgashites did not. The fire offerings of the Lord God of Israel, they are its estate. A substantial part of these sacrifices was not burnt, and thus was available to the Levites as food. This verse, this verse reiterated at the end of the chapter probably reflects a Deuteronomistic background in which the cult has been centralized in Jerusalem. All right, so maybe he's saying it's a later note added here about the tribe of Levi. Okay, so let's read 15 to the end of the chapter, 15 to 33. Vayitain Moshe lemate v'nei Reuven lemishpachotam. Moses gave to the tribe of the people of Reuven according to their families. Vayihi lahem hagevul me'aroer asher al sfat nachal Arnon ve'ha'ir asher betoch hanachal v'chol hamishur al meidva. So the asterisk there refers in the small Hebrew there. Some people think it should be ad meidva, so it should be a dalet and not a lamed. Okay, so their boundary, their border is from Arar, which is on the bank of the valley of Arnon, and the city that is in the valley, and all of the plain on Meidva. Cheshbon v'chol areha asher b'mishur, Divon uvamot Baal, uveit Baal me'on. Cheshbon and all its cities that are in the valley or in the plain, Divon and Bamot Baal and Beit Baal me'on. The Yatsa ukedemot umefaat. So Yatzat kedemot and mefaat. Kiryatayim v'Sivma v'Tzeret hashachar behar ha'emek, and Kiryatayim and Sivma and Tzeret hashachar on the mountain of the valley. Kind of contradictory. If it's a valley, how can there be a mountain? So what is this mountain of the valley? Okay, Uveit Pa'or va'Ashdot haPiska Uveit ha'Yeshimot. So these other places too. V'chol arei hamishur, v'chol mamlechut Sichon melech ha'Emori, asher malach becheshbon, asher hikam Moshe oto et ve'et nesiei Midyan, et Evi, ve'et Rekem, ve'et Sur, ve'et Hur, ve'et Reva, nesichei Sichon yoshvei haaretz. And all the cities of the plain and the whole kingdom of Sichon, king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, that Moses killed him and all of the chiefs of Midian who were Evi and Rechem and Sur and Hur and Reva, the princes of Sichon, who dwelled in the land. Ved Bil'am ben Ba'or HaKosem Hargu b'nei Yisrael becherev el Chalalehem. And Bil'am, son of Ba'or, the magician. Well, in modern Hebrew, Kosem is a magician. Here it's a soothsayer. The people of Israel killed by the sword with the rest of their slain. Vayehi Gevul b'nei Reuven Hayardain Ugevul Zot Nachalat b'nei Reuven lemishpachotam He'arim v'chatzreihen. And the border of the people of Reuven was the Jordan River, and this border is the heritage or the portion of the people of Reuven according to their families, the cities, and their area, or the villages associated with the cities. 24, Vayitain Moshe l'matei Gad, livnei Gad l'mishpachotam. So Moses now apportioned the tribe of God, the people of God, according to their families. Vayehi lahem hagvul Yazer v'chol arei hagilad v'chatzi eretz b'nei Amon ad Aroer asher al pnei Rabbah. So their border was Yazer and all the cities of Gilead, and half of the land of the people of Ammon, and until Aroer, which is next to Rabbah. Ume Cheshbon, the asterisk there tells us now we've gotten to half of the book of Joshua according to the number of verses in the book of Joshua. That's what the asterisk says. Ume Cheshbon ad Ramat HaMitzpeh uvetonim umimachanayim ad Gevul lidavir. And from Cheshbon until Ramat HaMitzpeh and Betonim, and from Machanayim until the border with Devir. Uva Emek Beit Haram Uveit Nimra Vesukot V'Tzafon Yeter Mamlechut Sichon Melech Cheshbon Hayardain Ugevul Ad Katzei Yam Kineret Ever Hayardain Mizracha. And in the valley of Beit Haram and Beit Nimra and Sukkot and Safon, the rest of the kingdom of Sichon, king of Cheshbon, the Jordan, and the boundary until the edge of the Sea of Kinneret on the other side of the Jordan eastward.
Jonah?
Yes, Bess.
I'm ignorant. Is this Philistinian Lebanon or?
No. It's the Jordan Valley today. So essentially it's from Jericho. So the top of the Dead Sea is essentially from the top of the Dead Sea, but in Jordan today, until the Golan Heights, but again, which would be Syria on the right-hand side of the Sea of Galilee. Okay, so it's north of the Dead Sea to the side, to the east side, the right side of the Sea of Kinneret.
But we talked about Sidon being by Lebanon, didn't we?
Yes, but we didn't get to Sidon. We have Sichon. This is Sichon, not Sidon.
I told you there was ignorance in my mind.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
28, Zot Nachalat B'nei Gad L'mishpachotam He'arim V'chatzreihem. This is the portion of the people of God for their families, the cities, and their villages. 29, Vayitain Moshe Lachatzi Shevet Menashe Vayihi Lachatzi Matei B'nei Mashe L'mishpachotam. And then Moses gave to half of the tribe of Menashe, their half the tribe of Menashe according to their families. 30, Vayihi Gevulam Mimachanayim Kol Habashan Kol Mamlechut Og Melech Habashan V'chol Chavot Yair Asher Babashan Shishim Ir. And the border, their border is from Machanaim, all of the Bashan, all of the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, all of Chavot Yair, which is in Bashan, 60 cities. V'chatzi hagilad v'ashtarot ve'edrei arei mamlachut og babashan livnei Machir ben Menashe lachatzi v'nei Machir lemishpachotam. And half of the Gilead and Ashtarot and Edrei, the cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan, to the people of Machir, the son of Menashe, to half of the children of Machir, according to their families. And we'll talk about Machir in a moment, and when we look at the commentary, the last two sentences, Eila asher nichal Moshe ba'arvot Moav, me'ever layardain Yericho mizracha. These are which Moses apportioned at the steps of Moab, on the other side of the Jordan, Jericho eastward. Uleshevet halevi lo natan Moshe nachala, Adonai Elohei Yisrael hu nachalatam kasher diber lahem. And to the tribe of Levi, Moses did not give a portion. God, the God of Israel, is their portion, as he spoke to them. Okay, so now let's look at the commentary on these sentences. Back to page 77 on the bottom. Ruvain. So for verse 15 on the left-hand side, Reuben, hitherto it has been related in general terms that Transjordan had been allotted to the 2.5 tribes. Now the exact boundaries of each of these tribes are defined. The country between the Arnon and the Yabok was divided between Reuben and Gad. It was bounded on the south by Moab and on the eastern border by Ammon. The southernmost district was given to Reuben, and it extended from the river Arnon to the junction of the Jordan with the Dead Sea. Gad's portion lay along the banks of the Jordan and to the east, reaching northward to the Sea of Kinneret, the northern portion from Machanaim being very narrow. North of this lay the territory of half Menashe, which embraced the whole of Bashan. According to their families, that is, the territory was further subdivided among the clans or families of the tribes. Aroer, see on chapter 12. Medba, see on verse 9. Cheshbon, see on 9. Dibon, see on verse 9. Bamot Baal, literally the high places of Baal, the town being named after the cult of Baal, which was practiced there. It lay north of the Arnon and east of the Dead Sea. Beit Baal Me'on, literally the house of the Lord of Me'on. Lord probably referring to the deity worshipped in Me'on, which lies a few miles east of the Dead Sea. Yachaz, Yatza, or I guess it's Yahatz. A few miles northwest of Bamot Baal, Sichon joined battle there with Israel in the book of Numbers. Subsequently, it became a Levitical city. Some identify it with Atzfron, southeast of Medba. Kedmot, not identified, possibly in the vicinity of the upper reaches of the Arnon. Mefa'at, a Moabite city in the neighborhood of Yahaz. Kiryatayim, literally 2 cities or twin cities north of the Arnon and east of the Dead Sea. It's mentioned on the Moabite stone as Kiryatan, and King Mesha declares that he had built it. Okay, the Moabite stone is an archaeological discovery that dates back to biblical times and kind of serves as a source for some of what we read in the Bible. Like, in other words, some place names that we read in the Bible are mentioned on this Moabite stone. King Mesha, which I think who is referred to in the book of Kings, is mentioned on this stone. So there are some things that serve a purpose to corroborate some things in the Bible. So you can Google Moabite stone and find some more information about it. I think it took a while to translate it as well, because it's written in the Moabite language, and it took a while to figure out how to read the Moabite language. Sibma, conjectured to be the modern Sumaya, northwest of Cheshbon. Seret Shachar, north of Kiryatayim. Some identify it with Es Sarah, on the spur of Mount Atarus, east of the Dead Sea. The Mount of the Valley, perhaps Mount Nebo. Beit Peor, on the crest of a hill near Mount Pisgah. Slopes of Pisgah, Beit Yeshimot, see on chapter 12. Yazer, I'm on the bottom of 79 now. Yazer, northeast of Heshbon. Aroer, that is before Rabbah. According to the use of this expression in other biblical passages, there is indication that Israel surrounded Rabbah from the east. This is substantiated by the rabbinical interpretation of Moses' blessing to God, "Blessed be he that enlarges God," to imply that God's territory extended eastward. This Aroer should not be confused with the Aroer and Reuben's territory. So it's like Springfield. There's a Springfield in Reuben, and there's a Springfield in God. Ramat Mitzpeh, literally the height of Mitzpeh, a few miles north of Heshbon. Its site may be the modern Tel El Mitzpeh. Betonim, northwest of Ramat Mitzpeh, the modern Batna. The Lord of Lidbir, it may be identical, the border of Lidbir, it may be identical with Lo Devar in 2 Samuel. It is conjectured to be the modern Edabar. The valley of the Jordan. Beit Haram, the modern Beit Haran, east of the Jordan, opposite Jericho. Beit Mimra, the modern Tel Nimrin, north of Beit Haram. Sukkot, identified by the rabbis with Derala, near the Yabok. This is accepted by several modern geographers. Safon, literally north of the Yabok. The rest, etc., that is that which had not been allocated to Reuben. Sea of Kinneret, see on chapter 11. The villages of Yair, so named because Yair had conquered them. See Numbers 32. The term for villages, Chavot, is connected with the Arabic for a collection of tents and denotes tent settlements. According to Hershkovitz, the term Chava denoted a fortified encampment, which the 60 cities mentioned here originally were. They retained the designation even when they lost their military significance. Which are in Bashan, this is added to distinguish them from the villages of Yair and Gilead. And half Gilead, along the Jordan, the heritage of God stretched from the Yabok northwards to the Sea of Kinneret. But in the east, the Yabok, which divides the mountain range into 2, formed the border between God and Menashe, the southern half belonging to God, while the northern half belonged to Menashe. Ashtarot, see chapter 9, Edrei, see chapter 12, Machir, the firstborn son of Menashe, see below chapter 17. Sometimes the phrase, the children of Machir, is synonymous with the tribe of Menashe. So there's just a little bit of hint here about what is Menashe referred to by Menashe or by his son Machir. Even in the Torah itself, when in the description of the 2.5 tribes being given their portion by Moses, Machir is referred to. So there's just a question among scholars about who Machir is and why Menashe would be referred to by his son and not by Menashe. But
in our version, it says it was the only son of Menashe, which is different than his firstborn.
Right. So that's what.
Curious.
What did you say, Bess? At
It's
the
just
end?
a curiosity. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Changes
I'm not sure.
the rest of the definition.
So, and then on 33, no inheritance. See on verse 14. No continuous area was allotted to them, but only scattered cities in various parts of the country. Okay, so let's. There's just a couple things in ancient Israel.
Can I read 2 sentences from Isaac Asimov, the guide to the Bible?
Sure.
The book of Joshua, he says, he's in chapter 13, almost all the rest of the book of Joshua is given over to a painstaking account of the division of the land. It makes a very dull reading, but it takes the place of a map in modern books.
Right. Yeah. So, so he's forewarning us of what to expect. So it'll be a fast read, but yes, not too exciting. On page 64 in ancient Israel, the fire offerings of the Lord God of Israel, they are its estate. Oh no, we did that already. Balaam, son of Beor, the killing off of Balaam, who in Numbers 22 to 24 delivered against his own intention a grand prophecy of blessing about Israel, may reflect a nationalist nervousness over the prominence of this Aramean soothsayer. Lest one think he lived happily ever after once he had returned to his native land, here he is included among the victims of the conquest. Okay, so I think we'll be able to do chapter 14 now. There are only 15 sentences in it. So let's see. We're on 81, the Sansino. Ve'ele asher nachalu b'nei Yisrael be'eretz Canaan, asher nichalu otam Elazar HaKohen, v'Yoshua bin Nun, v'Rashei avot hamatot livnei Yisrael. These are which the people of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, that Elazar the Kohen and Joshua son of Nun and the heads of the fathers of the tribes gave as a portion to the people of Israel. Begoral anachalatam ka'asher tziva Adonai biyad Moshe l'tishat hamatot v'chatzi hamateh. By lottery was their inheritance, as God had commanded at the hand of Moses, to the 9.5 tribes. Kinatan Moshe nachalat shnei hamatot v'chatzi hamateh me'ever layarden v'la levi'im lo natan nachala betocham. Because Moses gave as an inheritance to the 2 tribes and half the tribe on the other side of the Jordan, and to the Levites he did not give an inheritance among them. Okay, we were just told that several times in chapter 13, but telling us again here. Ki hayu b'nei Yosef shnei matot Menashe ve'Ephraim v'lo natnu chelek laleviim ba'aretz ki im arim lashevet umi grishehem lemiknehem ulekinyanam. Because the sons of Joseph had 2 tribes, Menashe and Ephraim, and they did not give a portion to the Levites in the land, only the cities in which to live and their environs to their for their cattle and their substance or their property. Kasher tziva Adonai et Moshe kain asu b'nei Yisrael vayachlaku et haaretz. As God commanded Moses, so did the people of Israel do, and they divided up the land. Vayikshu, verse 6, Vayikshu b'nei Yehuda el Yehoshua ba'Gilgal vayomer elav Kalev ben Yefuneh haKenizi. Ata yadata et hadavar asher diber Adonai el Moshe isha Elohim al odotai ve'al odotecha beKadesh Barnea. So the sons of Judah approached Joshua in Gilgal, and Kalev, the son of Yefuneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know the thing about which God spoke to Moses, man of God, about what happened to us, or concerning me and concerning you in Kadesh Barnea. Ben arba'im shana anochi bishloach Moshe eved Adonai oti mi Kadesh Barnea leragel et haaretz va'ashev oto davar ka'asher im levavi." I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of God, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to scout out the land, and I returned to him, or I spoke to him as my heart told me to. Ve'achai, verse 8, asher aluimi himsiv et lev ha'am va'anochi mileti acharei Adonai Elohai. And my brothers who went up with me melted, this unusual word, melted the heart of the people, and I filled it with the but I wholly followed the Lord my God. Vanochi mileti. See, I was filled after God, my God. So the English here is saying, I wholly followed the Lord my God. We'll see the commentary soon. Let's just read the whole chapter first. Vayishava Moshe bayomahu lemor, im lo haaretz asher darcha raglecha ba, lecha tihiyeh lenachala ulevanecha ad olam, ki mileta acharei Adonai Elohai. And Moses swore on that day, saying, so surely the land on which your feet walked in, to you it will be a portion, and to your descendants forever, because you wholly followed God, my God. So in other words, Kalev is making a proposal, saying that, hey, hold on a second with the lottery, Joshua. So I want to remind you what happened back in the day when Moses promised me that wherever I walked in the land of Israel would be my territory. So he's making a bid for it not being part of the lottery, but having that land taken out of the lottery and given to Judah, the tribe of Judah, who Caleb represents. 10. Ve'ata hine hechaya Adonai oti ka'asher diber ze 45 shana me'az diber Adonai et hadavar hazeh el Moshe asher halach Yisrael bamidbar ve'ata hine anochi hayom ben 85 shana. And now here I am. God has kept me alive, as he said, for 45 years. All right, so now the book of Joshua is suggesting that this is happening 5 years after Moses died, right? And Moses died 40 years after leaving Egypt. So it's 45 years from being sent to scout out the land, from when God spoke this thing to Moses, who then caused Israel to walk in the wilderness. And now, here I am today, 85 years old. Odeni hayom chazak, ka'asher biyom shaloach oti Moshe, kechochi az uchechochi ata lamilchama v'latzeit v'lavo. I am still strong today, as I was on the day that Moses sent me. As my strength then, so is my strength now to go to war, to go out and come in. 12. Ve'ata tenali et hahar hazeh asher diber Adonai bayom ahu ki ata shamata bayom ahu ki anakim sham va'arim gedolot b'tzurot ulai Adonai oti v'horashtem ka'asher diber Adonai. And now give me this mountain that God spoke on that day, because you heard on that day that Anakim are there, and there are great fortified cities. Maybe it may be that God will be with me and will drive them out, or I shall drive them out, as God said. Vayevarchehu Yehoshua, vayitein et Chevron lechalev ben Yefuneh lanachala. Joshua blessed him and gave Chevron to Kalev the son of Yefuneh, as an inheritance. Al kain hayata Chevron lechalev ben Yefuneh hakenizi lanachala ad hayom hazeh ya'an asher milei acharei Adonai Elohei Yisrael. Therefore, Chevron was for Kalev ben Yefuneh the Kenizzite as a portion, as an inheritance, until today, because of following wholeheartedly after God, the God of Israel. V'shem Chevron lefanim Kiryat Arba, Ha'adam Hagadol ba'anakim hu, V'ha'aretz shakta mimilchama. And the name of Hebron before was Kiryat Arba, which who was great among the Anakites, and the land had rest from war.
So
Oh, yes,
was Caleb 85 years old also? Or something like that?
Was Joshua 85, you're saying?
No, Caleb.
Caleb is the verses said here that Caleb was 85.
Oh, I thought it was just.
We don't know. This chapter was talking about Caleb being 85. We think Joshua is around the same age. I don't remember. I think back in chapter 12, where it said, no, chapter 13 said he was old. So it doesn't say. Well, the commentary there said that maybe Joshua was 82. But here, Caleb is saying that he's 85. Okay, so let's read the commentary here on chapter 14. Eleazar the priest, the son of Aaron and his successor as high priest. He is named here for the first time in connection with the division of the territory. He, together with Joshua and a representative from each tribe, had been designated to apportion the land by lot. See Numbers 34. Here and in Numbers, he is given precedence over Joshua because the allotment was presided over by the high priest as representative of God, under whose direction the task was carried out. And the heads, etc. The purpose was to prevent arbitrary allocation and ensure that even the weakest received a fair share. We may see here the operation of the democratic principle, which is a conspicuous feature of the Bible. By the lot, the land was first divided into 7 regions, see chapter 8, and then lots were cast to determine the portion of each tribe. The method is not described, but the following traditional account is given in the Talmud. Eleazar was wearing the Urim and Tumim, while Joshua and all Israel stood before him. While Joshua and an urn containing the names of the tribes and an urn containing descriptions of the boundaries were placed before him. Animated by the Holy Spirit, he gave direction, exclaiming, Zebulun is coming up, and the boundary lines of Akko are coming up with it. Thereupon he shook well the urn of the tribes, and Zebulun came up in his hand. Likewise, he shook well the urn of the boundaries, and the boundary lines of Akko came up in his hand. And so with the other tribes. In Tractate Baba Batra. For the 9 tribes, etc. But it would appear the division made by Moses for the 2.5 tribes was not by lots. Probably as only 2.5 tribes were involved, it was easier to make the allotment by mutual agreement. 2 tribes, and so the total number of tribes participating in the division was 12, in spite of the exclusion of Levi. Save cities to dwell in, which were located among the other tribes. Jacob's dying words were accordingly fulfilled. I will divide them, Shimon and Levi, in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel. The tribe of Shimon also received no separate territory, but part of Judah's. See chapter 19. With the open land about them, in accordance with Numbers 35, this inclusion of land for pasture was essential for a population mainly pastoral. The children of Judah, Caleb, the former to support Caleb's claim. The Kenizzite, that is the stepson of Kenaz. Othniel was Caleb's half-brother. His father's real name was Chetzron, as in 1 Chronicles 2. He was called Ben Yefuneh to indicate that he had turned away from the counsel of the spies. Right, so there's a question about who Caleb is, who his father is. In 1 Chronicles, his father is Chetzron. So who is his father? Is it Chetzron? Is it Yefuneh? So maybe Yefuneh is just a name to say that he turned away, this being from the same word, turned away from the other tribes, from the other scouts.
Jonah?
Yes.
So this is referencing, Jacob's admonition at his on his deathbed for Shimon and Levi to not to be scattered. Yet the Levites get, they get elevated, and no commentator talks about that what was supposed to be almost like a punishment maybe, or at least an admonition, ends up with the tribe of Levi to be
Yes, there's no
heightened.
adequate explanation for it. There's just Midrash that tries to explain it. Certainly Levi, the man himself, did something horrible in slaughtering all the Shechemites. But yes, why they end up being chosen, like Moses and Aaron are from the tribe of Levi, and why then Aaron, as a subset of Levi, gets the Kohen status. So why they were chosen, we don't know. It's just Midrash to try to explain it. From a scholarly perspective, also we don't know, but perhaps warriors are the ones who win out and get the most important jobs. So, but for a rabbinic perspective, theologically, religiously, we don't want warriors to be representatives of God. We want representatives of God to be peace-loving. So how to reconcile the peace-loving sense of a religious leader with the warrior history of Levi himself? So that's the issue that the rabbis have. So the commentary goes on, concerning me and concerning thee, that is, that we live to enter the land of Canaan, as opposed to the rest of the generation who died in the desert. Kadesh Barnea, see chapter 10. As it was in my heart, in Hebrew, heart corresponds to the English word mind. Caleb's report corresponded with the impressions made upon him by his observations. Made melt, see Numbers 14. Moses swore, the oath is not recorded in the Torah. The land whereon thy foot has trodden. For the promise, see Deuteronomy 1. Although in the 40 days spent by the spies in Canaan, a considerable portion of the country must have been reconnoitered, particular mention is made of Hebron in the narrative, Numbers 13. The rabbis explained that only Caleb went to Hebron to pray at the tombs of the patriarchs, the literal rendering of number 13:22 being they went up into the south and he came into Hebron. Right, so there's Midrash there. Why did the Hebrew change from plural to singular? So that leads to the Midrash that Caleb cared about going to Hebron to see the cave of Abraham and Sarah, etc. These 45 years, the spies were sent in the second year of the Exodus, after which the people spent 38 years in the wilderness. Hence, the conquest must have occupied 7 years. Right. Okay. So that's Rashi's counting. So not 5 years after, but it took 7 years. While Israel walked, Kimchi renders because Israel walked, that is, wandered in the wilderness, this being the reason for the lapse of 45 years. As yet I am as strong this day. The inference Caleb wished to be drawn was that he was capable of conquering Hebron despite his advanced age. It was a bold claim, yet not improbable in view of the longevity of that period. Moses lived to 120 and Joshua to 110. To go out and come in, an idiomatic phrase signifying to fulfill all of one's duties. Now, therefore, give me this mountain, namely of Hebron. It's a tribute to the fair division of the country that he was the only one to ask for and receive preferential treatment, and even he requested a piece of land which had still to be subjugated. Hebron is situated among the Judean hills. He gave Hebron, that is, the fields and villages around Hebron, the city itself being a priestly habitation and a city of refuge. Kiryat Arba, that is, the city of Arba. To make it clear that Arba is a proper noun and does not mean four, the text continues, which Arba was the greatest man. Some rabbinical commentators nevertheless explain the name of the city as the burial place of 4 couples, namely Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah. Right, so it's a question, what is Arba? Is Arba a person's name, or is Arba a reference to these 4 couples? Had rest from war, Israel being too weary then to continue and complete the conquest. So let us look at, just 1 second here. Let's look at ancient Israel. Just get the pages situated. Not much commentary here. in the land of Canaan, page 66. As the next two verses make clear, this phrase indicates the land west of the Jordan. Except for towns to dwell in, these towns were a practical concession to the Levites from the other tribes and not inalienable territory. And the Judahites came forward. Although what is in question is the inheritance of Caleb, head of one of the clans of Judah, it's also regarded as a tribal issue because he's part of the tribe. You yourself know, Caleb uses the emphatic form in which the personal pronoun is added before the conjugated verb, because Joshua was there with him, joining him in the positive minority report against the fearful assessment of the other 10 spies. Brought him back word, this phrase is used in the spy narratives in Numbers 13. Just as I thought, that is honestly. The literal sense is, as it was with my heart. Made the people's heart faint. The literal sense of the Hebrew is made the people's heart melt. But in English, that phrase unfortunately suggests gushing sentiment. The same idiom is used in the recapitulation of the story of the spies in Deuteronomy 1. I followed after the Lord my God. The literal sense of the idiom is I filled after. The clear meaning is to carry out implicitly the will or command of someone. The same expression is used in the original story of the spies in Numbers 14. I am 85 years old. The Talmudic sages, calculating that the incident of the spies took place 2 years into the 40 years of wilderness wandering, conclude from this that the conquest of the land took 7 years. As my vigor then is my vigor now for battle and for command, the region around Hebron still requires conquering, as Caleb's words in verse 12 show. The idiom rendered as command is literally go out and come back, and it means to lead troops in battle. You yourself heard on that day that there were giants there. The narrative context makes clear that the Hebrew Anakim is not in this instance a gentilic, but means giants, the adversaries of daunting proportions before whom the 10 fearful spies felt themselves to be like grasshoppers. Therefore, as often elsewhere, the Hebrew Al-Kain introduces an etiological explanation, that is, where this came from. Kiryat Arba, the Hebrew name means city of four, perhaps as many scholars have inferred, because it was divided into 4 neighborhoods. But here, Arba is construed as a man's name, the largest of the indigenous giants. All right, so even Alter suggests that it could be a name for 4 as opposed to a person's name. Okay, we'll stop here for today. We'll continue next week, and next week will be our last class for the summer, because the following week is Shavuot, and it's Memorial Day weekend, and then we're into June, so next week will be our last class. So have a good rest of the day, everybody, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.